This video is to help clarify for your HI, your topic and your question. Reminder, please use your resources. Please read all directions. Your topic. Just logistically, it cannot be something from within the past 10 years. There's not enough time to have research or hindsight to be able to effectively draw conclusions. We can't know the full impacts. Also, you cannot have the same question as someone else. Please pick a topic that has a debate. Otherwise, this is not going to be a historical investigation. It will simply be an informative report. So there needs to be alternate views. And it doesn't have to be yes or no about something, but it's about the intricacies of them. And in fact, if it's a yes or no question or a yes or no answer, it most likely does not have a historical debate if it can be that simplistically answered. Pick a topic that you're interested in. You're going to be with this for a year and a half. You're going to want to have some motivation. So if you want to switch, now is the time to do so, because today we are starting academic research. So if you want to switch because you're like, oh, this is actually kind of boring, this isn't taking the direction I wanted, switch it. But let me just point out, if you are going to switch it, you're going to need to return to a Google pre-search to make sure that when you dive into academic research, you have a big understanding and you have that keyword list to work with. Now, how can you search for historical debates and perspectives? Some helpful suggestions for books to look up are Interpretations of American History, or 32 Problems in World History, or the ones that are on my desk that I told you guys about when we were talking about the HI before. You can find the debates and keywords in these books and then use those to help you in academic research. Again, building your understanding and then taking those and plugging them into that academic research. Now, you don't necessarily have to buy books. Sometimes you can find like an excerpt online, and that can also be helpful to being that springboard to take you into academic research, to finding those scholarly articles that support those historical debates. Also, anytime that a book or article is classified as revisionist, that automatically means that there's a historical debate and differing perspective, because revisionist means that they've revised the orthodox or traditional view. Therefore, if it's revisionist, that means that there's an orthodox traditional view out there, and you have those two views. And just because something is orthodox traditional doesn't mean it's necessarily wrong. There have been times that orthodox will have a view, and then the revisionists come out and they revise and change, and the post-revisionists say, actually, the revisionists didn't even have it quite right either. And maybe they come up with a totally different idea because of new access to information, or they actually go back to what the orthodox view said. Also, some keywords to plug in. Schools of thought. There are going to be different schools of thought for each type of historical event. And some of those schools of thought include traditional, orthodox, revisionist, post-revisionist, realist. So you can plug those in addition to the topic and your keywords. And then that is going to help populate some historical debate articles and books for you. So now let's move on to the question. I'm going to go over the questions, not because we're developing our question right now at this present time. It won't be until assignment 4. But the reason I want you to have this is so you can understand the direction you're heading. The following are examples of good questions. To what extent was the Vietnam War a nationalist independence movement? What was the primary reason why President Harry Truman decided to drop the atomic bomb on Japan in 1945? And what was the primary reason for U.S. intervention in Cuba in 1898? Now, why are these good questions? These are good questions because they require multiple perspectives. There could be different points of view, and that's what makes these successful questions. It automatically implies that there are going to be alternate views, and there are in fact alternate views. So you can use these as a structure of how to create your question as well. Now, what's going to come next are examples of bad questions. What actions did Herbert Hoover take to combat the Great Depression? What actions did the U.S. take to halt Japanese expansion in the Pacific between 1937 and 1941? And what actions did the U.S. take to limit European influence in the Western Hemisphere between 1890 and 1920? Now, why are these bad questions? They're bad questions because they just simply ask for facts. They're not asking for an argument. I could list off the answers to these. Therefore, we need to think, how could we adjust these? So one way to do it is, if you have an informative question, you then take that list and then you ask yourself, To what extent was blank action the most effective to combat the Great Depression? To what extent was this action effective in blah, 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 or ineffective? And that is where we're starting to get an argument. So that's what we have to do, is take it to that place of a historical debate. And your question will be developed by your research, but then also as you research, that's going to help develop your question. And then it'll just keep like going back and forth. Question, developing research, research, developing question, guiding you in this circular, cyclical process. More examples of bad questions. Did the US entry into World War I help the Allies win? Did harsh labor conditions contribute to progressive reforms in early 20th century America? And did Americans' industrial strength help the Allies and win World War II? Now, these are bad because they're kind of like duh answers. They very clearly are yes. And so because the answer is obvious, there's no historical debate, it is not okay to have this as your historical investigation question. So now how could we fix it? Again, pulling it to like a to what extent. For example, on the third one, to what extent was America's industrial strength the most significant factor in the Allies' win in World War II? Because in your research, you will find that there are historians and there are people out there that say that it is not the industrial strength, that it may have been other things contributed by America. It might have even not had anything to do with America as the most significant. And that's where it's going to be important. You have to have that historical debate.